Not once in this entire trial has Lindsay Clancy denied strangling her 3 children.
Tonight, just outside Boston, the heated clash in the Lindsay Clancy murder trial, accused of killing her 3 young children.
Well, Clancy has pleaded not guilty in the deaths of her children, but doesn't deny killing them.
Everyone is now talking about this case, the case of Lindsay Clancy, claiming that she was mentally ill when she killed her 3 children. But people aren't talking about her. They're talking about Patrick. A lot of people believing that Patrick did it. Well, there was huge evidence today which disproves that theory.
Her own attorney has offered to let her sign a written statement in her own hand, formally admitting to it. So in a murder trial where the defendant has admitted to everything, what is left for 12 jurors to decide? The answer is sitting in a journal, in a medication list too long to be believed, and in a question that American medicine and American law have never quite settled. Where does a crime end and an illness begin? This isn't a story about who did it. It's a story about who was actually inside that mother's body on the night it happened. That evening was ordinary in a way that now feels unbearable. Patrick Clancy left the house on Summer Street in Duxbury to pick up medication at CVS, then swing by a 3V restaurant for takeout. The whole trip took less than 25 minutes. In that short window, prosecutors say, Lindsay brought all 3 children down to the basement. And there, with exercise bands the family kept for workouts, she strangled Cora, 5 years old. Then Dawson, 3, then Callan, 8 months old. When Patrick walked back in, the first thing he noticed wasn't a sight, it was a silence. A house that was never quiet had gone completely still. Lindsay didn't stop there. She cut her own wrists and neck, then jumped from a second-story window.
A horrific story is unfolding tonight at a home in Duxbury. Investigators say 2 children are dead and an infant is in the hospital. The DA also saying their mother jumped out of a window. Now, she survived, but police say she was trying to end her own life.
A horrific night at 47 Summer Street in Duxbury. Investigators say a 5-year-old girl and 3-year-old boy are dead, and an 8-month-old baby is in a Boston hospital. Their mother is in a South Shore hospital after apparently jumping from a window in a suicide attempt. And we've learned the 3rd child found unconscious in a Duxbury, Massachusetts home on Tuesday has now died. The Plymouth County District Attorney says 7-month-old Callan Clancy was pronounced dead at Boston Children's Hospital today. Investigators say 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy strangled her 3 children. She's already facing charges for the deaths of her 5-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son. At last check, she was still in the hospital. The DA's office said she would be arraigned once she's released.
The fall left her with injuries so severe that she remains, to this day, in a wheelchair. Doctors confirmed it, paralyzed from the waist down, permanently. That's the entire physical case prosecutors needed to prove. And the striking part is, they've barely had to prove any of it, because Lindsay Clancy has never, not once, said she didn't do it. From her arrest in 2023 to this trial in 2026, her answer has stayed the same. Her own attorney, Kevin Reddington, has even offered to let her put that admission in writing.
Now, in a motion asking the judge to reconsider, her lawyer writes, quote, "The defendant is willing to stipulate formally in writing to her involvement in the underlying conduct resulting in the death of the 3 young children. The only live issue for consideration at trial would be the defendant's state of mind."
Which raises the real question. If nobody in this courtroom is arguing about who did it, what exactly have both sides been fighting over week after week? Before she was a defendant, Lindsay Clancy was a woman who kept a journal, and through this trial, those pages, handwritten, unedited, were read aloud in court, heard in order. They don't sound like the plans of someone plotting a crime. They sound like a slow drowning. It starts small. She wrote about being obsessed with her baby's sleep schedule, down to the minute. She'd drive around for hours every day just to get him to nap in the car, then blame herself for doing that to her own child. She wrote that she felt guilty for having him too young, a week shy of her older son turning 4 months. Then the entries get heavier. I also feel like I did it wrong, she wrote, because I did it when he was overtired. So I made it harder. I now have horrible insomnia and anxiety, which is causing depression. I have no appetite. I don't know what's wrong with me. I want help. I want to be well. She wrote about brain fog, unable to make a plan, unable to carry one out, living from one nap time to the next. She wrote that she was terrified of her son getting overtired because she felt she could no longer help him. She worried about going back to work, afraid she couldn't function through the fog. And then one line that stops any parent cold. I feel completely disconnected from my baby. I feel like I'm going through the motions every day. She wrote about her marriage, about being afraid inside her own relationship. She wrote that caring for 3 children left her overwhelmed. I'm drowning every day. She wrote that she was terrified of her youngest getting sick because a sick baby is a miserable baby, and she couldn't bear to watch that again. None of it talks about hurting anyone. It talks about a woman going under, page after page, always ending on the same line. I want help. The question the courtroom has to face is who, in the end, was listening. That plea for help was heard. The question is how it was answered. From late September 2022 through January 2023, 4 months, Lindsay Clancy was prescribed a run of medication so long that Reddington himself paused while reading the names into the record. Zoloft, an SSRI antidepressant, lorazepam, a benzodiazepine, hydroxyzine, an anti-anxiety medication, buspirone, also for anxiety, trazodone, a sleep aid, Prozac, another SSRI, Remeron, clonazepam, another benzodiazepine, Seroquel, an antipsychotic, diazepam, better known as Valium, Lamictal, both a mood stabilizer and an anti-seizure drug, amitriptyline, and Ambien for sleep. A psychiatrist confirmed on the stand that several of these drugs carry a black box warning, the strongest caution the FDA can attach to a medication, flagging an increased risk of suicidality, especially soon after starting the drug. That's an awful lot of drugs to be prescribed in 4 months, isn't it? Reddington asked directly. The prosecution objected. The judge sustained it.
Yes, September 2022.
4 month period.
Yes.
It's an awful lot of drugs to be prescribed in 4 months, isn't it?
Sustained.
But prosecutors didn't let the question sit. They brought out another side of that same list. Not all of those drugs were taken at the same time. Some, Lindsay took in very small amounts. Some, she never took at all. Both things are true, and both live in the same medical record. A dizzying list of powerful medications cycled through multiple doctors in an unusually short window, and, at the same time, a picture far more complicated than the number on the page, one where dosage, timing, and whether a pill was ever swallowed matter just as much as its name. The list doesn't answer anything by itself. It only asks, when a medical system answers, I want help with 12 different drugs in 4 months, who is actually in control of what's happening inside that woman's mind? The medical record is one thing, the air inside the courtroom is another, and some days it got tense enough that people had to say so out loud. One morning, in the middle of a forensic witness's testimony, Reddington flatly refused the judge's invitation to take it to a sidebar. He wanted it on the record, in open court. While Lindsay cried during autopsy testimony, someone on the prosecution's side muttered, "Shut her up." The courtroom went quiet. The prosecution's table exchanged looks, visibly stunned. Nobody confirmed it was them. Judge William Sullivan didn't hesitate. There would be no inappropriate, disruptive comments in his courtroom. Anyone who made one would be escorted out immediately and barred for the rest of the trial. No warning first. No yellow card. One strike. The prosecution later reviewed the tape and said the comment wasn't theirs at all, that someone had simply told the cameraman to shut it off, meaning the camera. That wasn't the only moment the room ran hot. With one emergency room doctor, Reddington pressed hard.
As you sit here, you don't know what her core body temperature was?
I saw her 3 years ago. I see about 200 patients a
I'm
month.
sure you're very busy, but this is a murder trial, doctor. Did you review your records and your notes?
I'm happy to look at my record if you bring it
Did
here.
you review your records and notes before you came in here today to testify on this case?
Sir, I did, but I don't have a photographic memory.
And prosecutors had their own weapon, not in cross-examination, but in the question they asked Lindsay the moment she first came to.
So what types of questions were you asking her, and what was she responding with?
So we asked her, how are you feeling? Horrified. And then she wrote down, do I have an attorney?
That question about a lawyer eventually got answered. But another question, quieter, kept circling back through this trial, and the answer to it came from people who had no reason at all to defend Lindsay. The nanny who cared for Callan took the stand. She described a notebook Lindsay kept in the kitchen, tracking every detail, feeding times, nap times, even instructions on cutting vegetables into precise squares so the kids could eat them easily. Prosecutors asked whether those meticulous notes were a sign of someone controlling, that because no one else could care for her children the way she wanted, Lindsay had to carry it all herself. But when the defense asked, the nanny just shook her head. She'd never found it overbearing. She'd found it completely normal. Then came the question the nanny couldn't forget.
Did you have the occasion to observe her interacting with the children?
I did.
And did you have any concerns about her interacting with the children?
Not at all. She was a wonderful mom.
That wasn't the only testimony like it. The children's pediatrician, who had cared for all three since birth, was also called to the stand. And like the nanny, she had nothing but good things to say. A devoted mother, a loving mother.
She was a hell of a mother, wasn't she?
I always thought she was a good mom.
Thank you.
What stands out isn't just what was said, it's who said it. Both of these witnesses were called by the prosecution, not the defense. These were supposed to be the people who could help paint a picture of a cold, calculating woman who knew exactly what she was doing. Instead, they stood in front of the jury and said the opposite. In the back of the courtroom, reporters noted the same thing. The moment the words "she was a wonderful mom" landed, all 12 jurors, almost at once, bent down and started writing. 12 jurors, taking notes inside the courtroom. But outside that door, a different trial has been playing out on social media with no judge, no rules of evidence, and a different defendant. It's Patrick. People pulled up the CVS security footage from that night. He's wearing a half-zip jacket and brown boots. A few minutes later, at 3V Restaurant, he's in sneakers and a full zip. To some viewers online, that's proof of something wrong, though nobody can quite say what. People also kept circling back to his trip to New York 2 months before the children died, and to the fact that he later moved to that same city with a new wife. From there, a story took shape across social media, that Patrick might have been having an affair, that he might know more than he said, that he might somehow share the blame. Let's be clear about what this is. It's what's circulating online, not an allegation from prosecutors or any investigator. Patrick Clancy has never been charged with anything connected to this case. As for the shoes, the simplest explanation. It was snowing, the boots got wet, he changed. Has never been raised as a formal question by either side, defense included. And the distance between Boston and New York, for a man who worked for a global tech company and traveled often, has never been unusual. So why did the story travel so far anyway? Maybe because the truth is too painful to sit with as it is, that sometimes there is no villain at all, just an illness, formless, silent, that took everything in a matter of minutes. Inside an ordinary family's home, an illness doesn't have a face to be angry at. A husband who changed his shoes on security camera footage does. But public opinion doesn't decide this. 12 jurors do, and what they have to weigh isn't shoes or plane tickets. It's the word of the only two people who ever truly sat across from Lindsay Clancy, trying to understand what was happening inside her mind. The first was Dr. Philip Resnick, called by the defense. He examined Lindsay about 4 months after the killings. On the stand, he introduced a detail almost no one had mentioned before. Lindsay told him she had heard a voice. That voice, as she described it, told her that if she didn't obey, both she and her children would suffer. Resnick's conclusion: Lindsay had become extremely, obsessively focused on caring for her children, and in her mind, she likely believed she was doing something good for them, bringing them to heaven with her, rather than leaving them behind without a mother.
She believed that if Ms. Clancy took her own life, her children would be in terrible shape, and in her mind, she believed that she would be doing her children a favor by having them go to heaven with her rather than remain on earth without her doing the mothering.
The second was Dr. Avram Mack, the prosecution's first rebuttal witness. He examined Lindsay only a few months ago, much more recently than Resnick, but still a long way from the night it happened. He doesn't dispute that Lindsay may have experienced psychosis, but in his professional opinion, even in the middle of a psychotic episode, a person is still fully capable of telling right from wrong.
Like I said, it depends on which delusion or which hallucination, but there are individuals, and it may be who can, and there may also be people who can on a stable basis, but there also are individuals.
Next question.
As far as a person who might be suffering from psychosis, can they appreciate or do they know right from wrong?
There's no reason that psychosis in of itself inhibits a person's ability to know right from wrong.
Same woman, two doctors, two very different points in time, two opposite conclusions, delivered under the same oath. Reddington went straight at that gap. Resnick saw Lindsay just 4 months after the event, he pointed out. Mack, nearly 3 years later, he also questioned how deep Mack's expertise actually runs in postpartum mental health, specifically a narrow field requiring its own experience. There's no brain scan for the question this courtroom is trying to answer. No blood test that draws the line between a mind that shattered and a mind that planned. All 12 jurors have is the word of two people who walked into the same room, looked at the same woman, and walked out with two different answers. As of this recording, that battle between two doctors is close to the last thing the jury has heard. The defense has formally rested. The prosecution is wrapping up its final rebuttal witnesses. Judge Sullivan has told the courtroom that closing arguments could come as soon as this week. After that, it all goes to 18 people, soon narrowed to 12, to decide between one of three outcomes. If they believe she planned it and understood right from wrong at the time, guilty, first-degree murder. If they believe she's simply not guilty, an outcome nearly ruled out from the start since she's never denied the act, not guilty. And if they believe a mental illness stripped her of the ability to tell right from wrong that night, not criminally responsible by reason of insanity. That third option doesn't mean Lindsay walks free. Massachusetts law allows her to be held for psychiatric observation for up to 40 days. After that, if a judge finds she's still ill and poses a risk of serious harm, she can be committed for inpatient treatment, 6 months to start, renewable, year after year, with no cap. The jury has to reach a unanimous verdict. If they can't, the result is a mistrial, and this entire story, the journal, the medication list, the two doctors, this waiting room of a courtroom would have to be told again from the beginning in front of a jury that's never heard any of it. So the question this trial was actually asking, it turns out, was never who did it. Lindsay Clancy answered that question on day one. She confessed to the act. What 12 jurors have to decide is who was really home that night, a mother or an illness wearing her face. 1 in 4 women experience postpartum depression. Postpartum psychosis is far rarer, but it's real. If you or someone you love is struggling after having a baby, please reach out for professional support. We've put resources in the description below. What do you think the jury should decide? Tell us in the comments. And when the verdict comes down, we'll be back with it.